Well, just to be honest, today's Friday, Good Friday. I won't say happy Christmas, happy Easter for anybody because it shouldn't be happy until Sunday when he has arisen.
Mm.
But anyway, I hope you eat lots of chocolate. This subject we've touched on before in other podcasts. However, this what I'm going to bring to the table now is a very blatant example of what we were on about in the other podcast many moons ago. It's a long time ago. So the Daily Mail was out early condemning a rocket attack in the Ukrainian city of Sumy, saying the attack was barbarous, as all attacks are, of course. I've never seen a rocket attack that wasn't. Claiming that bogeyman Vladimir Putin had ordered the shelling of a civilian target and that scores of people were killed and 80 injured. Lots of photos, by the way, of the aftermath. Some photos held back by the Mail, claiming that they're too graphic for their online publication. So either they've changed the policy or I'm missing something because being too gruesome never held them back before. They used to show the photo and perhaps blur out a little tiny bit. But anyway. According to the Mail, it was an unprovoked attack by those pesky Russians on a civilian population. That was the gist of the article in the Daily Mail. Now, on another publication, perhaps looking at it from a different view, about the same incident, perhaps a little more sympathetic this one to the Russian cause. There was an attack in the city of Sumy, and the target was a hotel where hundreds of Ukrainian troops had gathered. Some of them considered high-value targets like colonels and other lieutenants and such for a mutual backslapping event. It was a medal presentation ceremony. So in this publication, the number of dead was around 80 military, some of them important figures, like I said, and of course, as Tony Blair would say, some collateral damage, such as what?
Yeah.
Some of the rules of war is that you don't embed military people within a civilian population. People like Hamas tend to do this with their tunnels leading into hospitals being used as their military posts. After all, nobody would bomb a hospital, right? So back to Ukraine. The Ukrainian military said that yes, their gathering of personnel did take place in spite of warnings and protests from the city mayor. So everybody was aware of the danger. Of course, everybody tried to justify the military gathering, not by saying it was a strategic must, but by trying to make the other side look bad, by parading a little girl who became one of the statistics of the overall conflict. A little girl died, so
Yeah.
uh, the Ukraine had to show this little girl off. And so, in the end, who was right? The Daily Mail for admitting that there was military presence in a certain point in the city, or the other publication for exposing the fact? I would have to wait another 24 hours to find the answer. Vladimir Atyush was sacked a day after the rocket attack. He was head of Ukraine's Sunni region military administration. He denied that he had organized the military meetup, but was caught red-handed caught red-handed as they were tallying up the dead military people. Right? So he did. It turned out that he did organize a reunion in spite of the warnings, and that by saying he didn't, he tried to distance himself from the military disaster that took place. So that should give us a relatively good idea what happened. It could be that the journalist writing the Mail piece was trying to get ahead of the curve, as they say, and spoke to Artyuk in his denial stage, but didn't wait for all the facts to come out and printed and be damned at the time. Or it could be that the Mail deliberately misled by omission. After reading other Mail articles about Bogeyman Bad, I fear it may be the latter.
Right. Here we go. Um, yeah, propaganda in war. Um, it is. I remember reading. I've read a lot of war histories and look behind me, but a lot of war histories, and I remember reading something about a double agent called Zigzag, about a, a book about Agent Zigzag, yeah, and about that he used to report back from England, UK, or Britain, sorry, Britain at the time, about the about misinformation to the German High Command. Now, at the time, the War Office, the MOD, War Office, or uh, tried to get newspapers on board for the British press or media to actually support the fake information he was sending back, and they politely declined. Not out of a lack of patriotism; it's about integrity. Yeah, how could they expect people to believe them anything they reported going forward? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but this is what I read in this book. Yeah, which was done by an independent or journalist or author. Yeah, who researched it. Um, and so yeah, I thought, well, that's interesting. There's a big difference, like you say, but not reporting something or reporting something that's blatantly false. Yeah, that's not to say there wasn't codes and things like that where it appeared in classifieds and other places. Yeah, there might have been some coding goes on, but that's a big difference from actually fake reporting. Um, and yes, now I don't know what the Daily Mail is. We don't know, given the benefits of doubts. Yeah, everybody's scrambling to be the first to report something major in our 24-hour news society now. Yeah, which is what we've got. Yeah, there is now an expression in in the media industry. First to report at 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. First to issue an apology at eight p.m. Yeah, everybody wants to be first with the news. Um, I would hope that this journalist probably took something in good faith from somebody that he may have a contact with. Yeah.
But
I'm not.
up until now, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Up until now, the Daily Mail hasn't done the retraction.
Well, okay.
So, you know, it's the very minimum. It must be very
Hmm.
sloppy reporting. I mean, the Daily Mail the other week was saying that Vladimir Putin had overtaken the controls of a ship to make it collide in
Yeah.
another,
Okay. Yeah. A little bit. Yeah.
or that Putin was behind the um, the explosion at the substation, which blacked out Heathrow. I mean, and both those times I also didn't hear an apology from uh, from the Daily Mail.
Well, this is.
They just stuck in another headline
Yeah.
telling the truth.
Well, okay. They've said that. Yeah. They'll put it down to misinterpretation, misunderstanding, or reporting of what they knew at the time. Yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean, this is the trouble with. I mean, I've already seen reports in Ukraine that one day they put this great picture of an explosion, vehicles on their sides, and everything else. And I saw a report by an explosives expert, or expert. I don't like the term expert. Somebody who's knowledgeable about explosions, let's just say. He said, "Well, if that was a blast, it's the cleanest blast that's ever happened, sort of thing. You know, these vehicles were on the side, but no windows were broken or anything else." He pointed out things that drew into question what was going on. And we already know that the Ukrainians have been using footage from sophisticated video games.
Yep.
And reporting is real. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, this got picked up by gamers who, probably pro-Ukrainian, but said, well, can you not desecrate our territories on this as well? What we do. I must admit, at first glance, this footage looked good, and then you could just sort of see where maybe it was questionable. Um, so yeah, I mean, this is the theatre of war. There's always been confusion. There's always been other things. You're the first to go to a massive explosion in an area. I can imagine what the journalists are being faced with if the journalist was actually on the ground. Yeah, that's what I'd like to know. Um, or if
think
he's,
it was.
yeah,
The Daily Mail? I don't think it was. I
no,
think
well,
it must have been a very bad telephone line. He got he received his information.
well,
If,
okay,
if he received information.
well, okay. I'm only trying to get the facts, if you like, together in my mind. Yeah, without, obviously I've got this cold and I'm asking the questions. Was the guy on the ground himself? Where did the pictures come from? What was the source? Um,
You
these are,
know, the funny thing is, Mark, the funny thing is, I mean, if it strikes me that it was a propaganda piece.
Mhm.
It's once again, it's to paint the Russians as the bad people, as the
Okay,
aggressors,
fair enough.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing is that officially, uh, Great Britain is not at war with Russia. They've got nothing to win. They've got nothing to gain by posting this crap, by publishing this rubbish. And the photos, yes, they were released by, um, you know, that once it goes digital, it goes to the whole planet,
Well, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So these people who were taking the photos and publishing them, and that's where the photos come from.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but that should be attributed to whoever if they come off the internet, off the internet. If
Yeah,
it's if
well, normally, if it's like the Associated Press or
yeah,
Reuters or something
yeah,
like that, there,
yeah,
then they do have a
mm,
little tiny word Reuters
yeah,
or a.
yeah. It well, it's like anything else. It's like, I like to know the sources of what I'm being told, whom I've been told it by. I mean, okay, the Russians launched a rocket. It hit a hotel that's full of military personnel. I mean, this has always been a question. What is a under the Geneva Convention? What is a legitimate target? I remember watching the film, funny enough, The Dirty Dozen, and then I remember reading a forum about this, where if you actually watch the film, it is quite a violent film, um, where they're going to attack, where there's again in a in a French, I think it was French, was it a French um, a French manor house? Yeah, what do you call them there? And where they attacked a load of Germans or Nazis or German officers and everyone else there, and they were there with their wives, possibly families as well. Were the families legitimate targets? I think under the Geneva Convention, yes, they are, because they are associating with the enemy. Yeah,
If their country is
yeah,
in a state of war.
yeah. Okay, but um, in this case, yes, there was a civilian building targeted, possibly if the it's difficult to ignore if there's a big military presence around a building, unless you're deliberately trying to hide it.
Well, they're
Uh,
all they were all inside. That's what the thing is.
well, if they're inside, somebody knew they're inside. They'd used
Right.
intelligence to actually target it. They hit eight, as you said, 80 or so military personnel, legitimate target.
Yep.
Yeah, collateral damage is going to happen. Unfortunately,
Yep.
when you do a strike there, um, it's unfortunate, yeah, young life, otherwise innocent life. We have to assume that, well, this young girl was innocent. Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, it's questionable with Hamas, for some of the children, unfortunately, in that theatre of war, the innocence of them. And I'm sorry to say that, but yeah, they're doing things for a terrorist organisation. This should be just a straight conflict. I know there's no such thing as a straight conflict, and as you have rightly said, yeah, people are saying it's a dreadful war. Well, I've yet to know a war that isn't a dreadful war in any sense. Yeah. Um, I'd rather people stop killing each other, get round the table and start talking. Yeah. Let's stop all this bloodshed, whoever it is, whoever it is. I mean, we're now seeing, and I'm just going to turn it away slightly here. I've been watching some film, it's film footage that I have to assume is real. I don't know, taken from suicide drones attacking Russians.
Yep.
And these are quite horrific videos. There's one I saw of a Russian soldier who saw the drone, thought there's nowhere to go, and just stood there and it took his fate. Of course, it blanks out before, yeah, you see anything else. And another one was supposedly of a nurse, or certainly a female Russian combatant, who just stood there. She was pleading for her life. whoever the operator was decided her pleas were going to fall on deaf ears, and off he went. I mean, yeah. She's still a combatant. I don't know if somebody said it was a medical, could have been a medical. I don't know how the Russians operate, I must admit. But yeah, she was in a theatre of war, unfortunately. There's no indications to say she was a medical person. Yeah. I'm afraid in that situation, she's still a legitimate target, but it's still a horrendous thing to witness. Yeah. We're now entering into a war. We're now got this modern warfare is not nice. It's not pleasant. It's done remotely. A lot of it, like you said, a missile strike on a civilian place on a building that should normally be gonna naturally be in a civilian area, but legitimate field for legitimate targets. Yeah.
The military could have held this medal ceremony in a barracks somewhere.
Well, this is what I want to know. I want to know the full story. It sounds weird. Um,
And apparently the mayor of the town, of the city,
yeah, said he didn't want to do it. Yeah.
To me, to be quite honest, the fact that the guy was sacked
Mm.
suggests to me, and he was organizing it, suggests to me that he wasn't there. And that to me raises a huge red flag.
Well,
Because
yeah.
when I produced events, I was always there.
Yeah, but he wouldn't be producer. If he was the area commander, he'd be doing things like actually organising counterattacks and things like that. I'd be more worried if he was at the. I mean, we don't know what the event was. Okay, was it as you said, a medal ceremony, a chest out medal ceremony? Was it a load of lads just getting together thinking, oh well,
No,
yeah.
it's a medal ceremony.
But if it's a medal ceremony, he wouldn't have needed to be there necessarily. He probably was pressing work elsewhere, or there's something else that's been going on. Yeah, I mean, war does throw up these peculiarities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And why wasn't this person in this position? Well, they were doing this. Something else may have come up in the theatre of war. He may have been having to deal with some other operational issues. He probably could have been scheduled to be there or going to be arriving later when the drink ups were happening. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, medal ceremonies are actually quite boring. I imagine. I think I wouldn't want to be at one unless I had a real interest to be there. Yeah,
But going back to the main point of the
yeah,
podcast,
yeah.
there were two journalists
Mm,
giving two accounts of the same attack,
mm.
and one of them was extremely wrong,
Well, again,
either on purpose or through naivety or through laziness
mm,
or through, and I'm not saying which journalist was wrong.
no, you can't. Yeah, I mean, this is it.
I'll let the audience
Yeah.
decide that one.
Well, I'm afraid that very often happens. You get report one side, one the other. Yeah, we have to wait for the history books, possibly on this one. Yeah, I mean, maybe the journalist saw something, and yeah, he said, "Isn't it's awful? It's in a civilian area." Well, it's a war going on between two countries. The weirdest thing that's happening in Ukraine at the moment, I wouldn't say weird, is to the west. They're building a $1 billion ski resort to the west of Ukraine.
No, on that side of the country, it's all
Yeah.
hunky dory. It's all
So
peace.
yeah.
It's only in the eastern side that
Yeah.
it's where there's been conflict.
Yeah. I'm just making this point. That's the whole thing is a little bit peculiar. It's not
And
what
I'd
we
like to know where they get the money from, of course.
well, I believe it's private money. Somebody's doing some investment. Let's put it this way: Ukraine is
Of
very
course,
much on the
of,
map now.
of course there are. Of course they are. If I had a few $1 billion, I'd go to a war-torn country too and invest.
Yeah, I wasn't particularly directly hinting at that. I was just
No,
suggesting
no.
that, yeah,
Well, and
yeah,
you're right. Strange things do happen during wartime.
yeah, yeah. Just, I mean, Ukraine is a big country, yeah, to say, yeah, but it's yes, you're quite right. It's peculiar. Well, to sum up, this is a theatre of war. Strange things get reported. We'll see what gets said in the coming weeks
And think
about it.
something and some things get left under the carpet.
We might not know for years. Yes.
Yeah.